Evie Pig was just born, and she's already making quite a splash. But did you know there are several little details about Peppa's younger sister that say a lot about her? Heart. You might have already noticed that both Peppa and George, along with their parents, have a circular-shaped mark on their cheeks. But that's a pattern Evie has broken. She also has a mark on her face, but hers is shaped like a heart, which is way more unique, right? The fact that she's the only one with a different mark, and that it happens to be this specific shape, is kind of poetic because it shows how Evie will bring so much more love to the pig family. This already shows how much everyone will truly adore her, not just mom and dad, but also Peppa and George. And of course, it also means that the little one will grow into an even more loving person as she gets older. We'll never see her fighting over silly things like her older siblings because she'll avoid unnecessary conflicts at all costs. It's going to be amazing to see this little character grow up, right? She's set to become one of the coolest characters in the show. We were able to notice this just by paying close attention to one of the 8 small details you didn't notice about Evie Pig. So get comfy and join us. It's time for another Cinewave. Duck. George is obsessed with dinosaurs, and all of the show's more than 300 episodes have made that super clear. Peppa, on the other hand, really loves her teddy bear. Evie will also have a favorite animal, and we already know what it's going to be. A duck. After all, her bib is decorated with a drawing of one, and even her official logo features the little creature. So it's pretty obvious that she's going to have a strong preference for this animal. We'll all definitely love seeing Evie getting a duck toy, which is probably going to be one of the very first things that happens after her birth. Will she be as obsessed with ducks as George is with dinosaurs? Maybe even more, since she'll be super young and won't know much else about the world yet. And we all know how little kids get really attached to their favorite toys. You know what else will be great to see? The little girl playing with her duck while George plays with his dinosaur. When you think about it, they'll have a stronger bond than we could have ever imagined. Name. No one expected Peppa's little sister to be named Evie, but the name isn't random. It's actually a tribute to Mommy Pig's aunt, who has that exact same name. The reason they share the same name is probably because the little one resembles her great aunt. The question is, will we ever get to see the original Evie at some point in the animated series or not? It would be really cool if she showed up to visit the little piglet, but that might be impossible if the great aunt has already passed away, which would explain why she's never appeared on the show. Regardless, this name is just perfect for the girl because Evie comes from Hebrew and is a different version of Eve, the first woman created by God according to Christianity. And going even further, you'll realize that the name means nothing less than life. And what is the new little one, if not a new life that has just joined the pig family? The show's production team really thought of everything when creating this new character, didn't they? No one would have guessed that she'd have so many deep details. And if you love the baby's name as much as we do, drop a comment below, #Evie. Birth date. The little girl's birth date is one that will stay forever etched in our minds because it happened on May 20th, a day that seemed as normal as any other. No one expected that one of the best pieces of news in the animation world would arrive to fill us with joy. However, we probably could have seen it coming before we were surprised, because her birth date was already a pretty special day, and there are actually several reasons for that, surprisingly enough. For example, on May 20th, 2025, Christians celebrated the Feast of the Ascension of Jesus Christ, which happens exactly 40 days after Easter. We're talking about a hugely important religious date. It's pretty poetic that Evie was born right on the day when Christianity's Messiah completely ended his mortal life and returned to paradise. Okay, so 2 really important things happened on that day in 2025, but there have been other times when this date was totally unique. Want an even more unexpected example? You don't even need to wait. On this very same day, but 416 years ago, William Shakespeare published his sonnets for the very first time in London. He's one of the greatest literary figures in all of history, and the fact that his legacy began on this date doesn't really feel like a coincidence. Could it be that Evie will follow a musical path when she grows up, and this little clue was left here for most fans to only notice much later? Weight. Even the new little piglet's weight and height were revealed. Or, well, kind of, because the explanation wasn't exactly crystal clear. According to what was shared, little Evie is as tall as 4 apples stacked one on top of the other, and her weight is equivalent to 8 little bundles of affection. That doesn't really tell us much, does it? Especially since affection isn't something physical that has weight. But that doesn't stop us from taking what we know less literally and using a little bit of math to come up with an interesting conclusion. Since we already said that affection doesn't have a weight, let's swap it out for something super affectionate, like a teddy bear. If Evie weighs as much as 8 teddy bears, and assuming each one weighs about half a kilo, not too light, not too heavy, that means she probably weighs around 4 kilos, the weight of a healthy and super adorable baby. Now, the apple thing is way easier to figure out, simply because food is a physical object with both height and weight, like any other item, unless you've got a ghost banana hiding in your house. Anyway, how big is an apple? The answer, about 10 centimeters. So, our dear Evie is probably around 40 centimeters tall. And that totally makes sense, since newborn babies usually measure just over 40 centimeters, like 43 or 45, and since the baby seems to be quite healthy, we can safely assume that's probably her case too. Bow. Another little thing that shows how Evie got a lot more design attention than all the other characters, both babies and the rest of the pig family, is her little yellow bow on her head. The vast majority of babies in the show are just mini versions of what they'll grow into later, and Peppa and George are great examples. The only difference between them is their height, but Evie has her bow, which is soon going to become pretty iconic. And that bow might stick around or not in the future. It depends on the reason it's even there. The accessory might be dropped by Evie once she gets a little older. If that happens, the bow would have been placed there specifically to break the usual trope of characters never really changing their style much even as they age. It would be super cute to watch an episode about Evie changing her style and swapping the bow for something else, like a really adorable hat. On the other hand, it's totally possible that the plan isn't to get rid of the bow after the youngest pig grows up, but that she'll wear it forever, especially since it's yellow, just like her duck. That might not break the baby look cliche, but at least it shows that Peppa's new little sister will have a style that's pretty unique compared to her sister and the other kids. Peppa Pig is just the best, right? So go ahead and subscribe to the channel to always get our videos about Peppa and other amazing cartoons. Outfit. It's funny that Evie loves little yellow ducks and also has a bow in that color because that made everyone think it must be her favorite color. And maybe it is her second favorite, or one of them, but there's another color that clearly has a special place in her heart, light green. What makes that super clear is the fact that the little jumpsuit Evie already wears at this age is exactly that color. George, ever since he was little, wore a blue jumpsuit, while Peppa had a red one, and they both kept wearing those colors as they grew up. The same goes for all the other kids. When they were little, they also wore outfits in the exact same colors as their future clothes. So Evie will definitely end up wearing a light green dress when she gets older, which will create a bit of a contrast with her yellow bow and her future duck toy. We believe that'll keep her from just looking like a mini version of Peppa, with only her size and dress color being different enough to tell them apart. You could say that her two favorite colors are yellow and light green, or do you think they're not tied and that she might actually prefer one over the other? Zodiac sign. Besides the things that happened on Evie's birthday, there's also the matter of her zodiac sign, which is also determined by the day she was born. Since she was born from Mommy Pig on May 20th, Evie is a Taurus. And if she'd been born just one day later, she would have been a different sign altogether. But it's a good thing she's a Taurus because they're known for being patient and stable, something we already kind of expected from the youngest sibling. She really has everything it takes to be the sister who brings Peppa and George together when they're fighting with each other. Actually, she'll probably do that for the whole family and everyone around her. Now, one trait of Taurians that her parents are definitely going to hate is their huge appetite. People born under this sign almost always eat until they're completely stuffed. So just imagine Evie Pig, who's a little piglet. She's going to have an insatiable hunger, and her parents will have to hustle to keep up with all that food. We left 2 videos on your screen, so just click on whichever one you're most interested in, okay? Thanks, and see you next time!